How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? My name is TheStarkz, and welcome to a brand new The Last of Us Part 2 video. Today, I'm going to be breaking down, or at least I'm going to be reading off an article and then breaking down some of the opinions regarding The Last of Us and the implication of violence, the impact of violence within the game, as this title suggests. Now, the article will be in the description below for you to read, but I figured I'd use this as some source material to just cover some of these different perspectives that I have regarding The Last of Us Part 2 and its portrayal of violence. Now, the article states, since the very first trailer for The Last of Us Part 2, the portrayal of violence has been a reoccurring conversation. Some very cool vocal about the fact that it seemed like the level of violence within the game was excessive and that Naughty Dog was simply adding it into the game without a purpose. As it turns out, and what's been made more clear as of late, is that the violence ties in with other themes within the game. Yes, the violence we've seen in the trailer so far can be tied in with the game's themes of revenge and hate. In a recent interview with official PlayStation magazine, the December 2019 issue, co-writer Haley Gross talked about the controversy. According to her, this violence attempts to make players uncomfortable with their own actions. As such, it becomes a lot more impactful as opposed to random. Here's what Haley Gross, the writer, or co-writer of The Last of Us Part 2, had to say on the impact of violence within the game. And I quote, "On the one hand, we want to develop empathy, but we also want to raise the stakes for Ellie. So every time you're experiencing these setups, you have to engage with what would have been a typical NPC. But now you've shot him and his friend keeps screaming his name, and you have to carry that impact of your violence with you." She continued, saying, "Ultimately, this is a story about the cycle of violence, right? But beyond that, it's a conversation about the effects systematic trauma can have on your soul." And of course, the article then breaks down, some of the delay information. But that's pretty much it. I like that little last bit where she was like, it's also a conversation about the effects, the systematic effects that trauma can have on your soul, which is obviously going to be a theme in the Last of Us. They've already mentioned that it's going to have some form of political affiliation to it. It might be subtle, but there probably are going to be some political commentary in it. And I love when games can challenge the audience and the players to really think intellectually and to have these deep conversations about the world outside of this specific, obviously fake post-apocalyptic world, because it's rooted in real characters, in characters made by people who probably embody these types of characters or know of other people who have been through similar situations, obviously without the post-apocalyptic part, and so it's going to really build on that. And I like how I don't know when, unfortunately, I don't know when this actual interview took place. I don't know how recent it is, but this is an article by Aaron, who posted it just a couple of days ago on November. So I reckon it's pretty recent, probably after a couple weeks after they delayed the game. But nonetheless, that's interesting that we get more perspective from Haley Gross, obviously co-writer on The Last of Us Part 2, who talks about, and we've seen this specific theme, ever since the gameplay demos, the recent ones, about how you are going to feel a lot more, sympathetic and empathetic for those you kill in this world because of how engaging it is, how depth and detailed these NPCs are. They are living human beings, and I really like these systems in place because it really allows you to question not only your own morality, but the morality that you're bringing upon Ellie. So it's going to be interesting, really, really interesting, and I like the theme of violence. Obviously, we know this game is rooted in hate, revenge, and so we're going to see how all of those themes tie together about your own personal trauma and how to deal with it, and I find that interesting because I just finished The Walking Dead Telltale, the final season last night. Great game. Had me crying, but great game. And they spoke a lot about trauma, so I find that very interesting how there is this little tie between these two games, which are post-apocalyptic games, which do take place in the future, which do have main kick-ass, female characters who really have something to prove, who have a purpose in this world. With Clementine, her purpose was to save or to protect a baby that she found throughout the world. Meanwhile, Ellie is to seek this revenge and to live and feel like she has purpose in this world. And I really like when games offer that, with mediums that offer that. Movies do that too, but not to the extent of video games, where you have this purpose in this world and you're trying to fulfill that purpose. And I really like that aspect, that perspective of just understanding your purpose and finding it, because it makes these type of games, post-apocalyptic games, a lot more useful. And not to crap on other PlayStation games, but Days Gone, another post-apocalyptic game, did not offer that. It was not purposeful as much as it is in The Last of Us Part 2, or what it seems to be. And I find that very interesting. Now, I also want to touch base on the perspective that Naughty Dog, now the writer of this article didn't say this was their opinion, but other people have suggested that Naughty Dog might be adding this violence without a purpose, which to me makes no sense. It's a craft, it's freedom of expression, freedom of craft, and to insinuate that companies or people who put violence in their movies or games shouldn't, or feels forced, like how do you even differentiate between something that's forced and something that's not, right? So I know that was a reoccurring argument that people had when we saw the first Paris Games Week trailer back in 2017, I believe it was, where we saw a lot of violence in that trailer. And it was very violent, but it's a post-apocalyptic world, so already automatically the violence is necessary, right, to survive. And you can even have violence in a romance. It doesn't have to feel forced. It could just be in there, but that opinion I don't really agree with. But I'm curious to know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. Of course, like I said, this article, which is not a long read at all, it's very interesting. You can have a look on it. It's going to be in the description below for you to read. And with that being said, of course, if you're new to my channel, subscribe. I would appreciate that. Also, like the video. And yeah, thank you for watching. I've been TheStarkz. Peace.